Hi there, art lovers. Welcome back to Makeover May with Latitudes Gallery. I'm Tasha Cleaveland, and I'm the in-house design consultant at Latitudes. And what I do is I help people find just the right piece of art to match their spaces. And this month, all month long, we've got Makeover May, which is our favorite event of the year. It's when we do a $1,000 artwork giveaway. All you got to do is send in a photo of your room, and we select the perfect piece of art to go on your wall and enter you to win. Today, I am focusing on the sitting areas. So sofas, sectionals, and all of the combinations of that, because this is actually the question we get asked probably the most. The artwork for above these places can be really tricky for people. And so today we're going to take a look at Gina's room. And Gina's submission for Makeover May is a beautiful room. Honestly, I want to dive into your room, Gina, and probably take a nap. But Gina's submission, she actually has a sofa and a love seat. And so this is a little bit different than what you would do with a sectional, even though when those pieces are combined, they take up the same visual weight. So usually when we're talking about a sofa, I recommend putting a 2-to-1 ratio, a 30 by 60 piece of art on the wall. And Foamy Flute, as always, looks phenomenal in her space. Foamy Flute just kind of has that perfect beachy vibe and all the colors of a typical beach-inspired room. So when I take a look at Foamy Flute in her space, the only thing that doesn't feel cohesive for me is that I really want to fill that wall a little bit more. And so there's a couple things that I want to do in her space before we go any further. And that is one thing I want to point out is that when you're filling a wall, it doesn't all have to be artwork. And I know that seems counterintuitive that I'm talking for an art gallery, but you don't need the entire wall to be artwork. It just needs to make sense and be a mix of full and empty. That's what balance is. And so in this space, I actually recommend pulling in some life with a plant. And you'll see that throughout the rest of the day today, I use plants a lot to fill in some of this empty space without it feeling overwhelming or cluttered. It also grounds the space really well. The other thing I want to do are 2 little room adjustments. Now, the first thing is everyone hangs artwork as high as they possibly can. So in Gina's space, it's really, really common for us to see this kind of thing. The artwork is higher than you can actually enjoy it when you're standing. So I recommend bringing that down. When you hang artwork, you want it to be around 60 to 66 inches vertical center. So that's this distance. And you want to adjust that based on the viewing height of the people that are going to view it. So if it's in your house, are you guys tall? Are you on the shorter side? Is it a mix of everything? Then you're going to split that difference and go 63 inches. If it's in an office building, you'd also go 63 because there's a wide range of people coming to look. So in this case, I would pull that art down just a bit on the fireplace and scoot this blanket ladder over just a bit. And let me show you, let me jump back and forth so you can see the difference. We are getting more breathing room around the art when we give it a little bit of space above, and we're getting breathing room around the blanket ladder so that when we put the art on the wall, it doesn't feel as crowded. We don't want the room to feel lopsided. So in this case, this side of the room feels really heavy. And so scooting that over just a touch gives us a little bit of breathing room. The other thing that I want to point out is that Foamy Flute has a beautiful, intense, like denim blue color palette. And in Gina's space, it's a bit of a softer gray blue. So as much as I love Foamy Flute, that doesn't quite sync for me. The other thing in Gina's space I want to point out that's really common is this heating vent. And that is something that we see really, really frequently. And this is why I love when people send in a photo of their room or we jump on a live to do a consultation just like this. This is what I do live. We can jump on it. No matter where you are in the world, we can do this. That makes it so easy, because oftentimes people will say, oh, my sofa's 60 inches or my sofa's 80 inches. And the ceiling's a standard ceiling height of 8 feet. And I'm like, okay, there's certain math, 60 and then 8 feet. All right, we know what's left. But oftentimes we forget the heating vents. And in this case, it does impact how high you can go with the artwork and how full you can make that artwork. So it feels a little crowded if you go too close. Now, I would never go beyond middle. I wouldn't hang something, all the way up here, but it does limit how tall the artwork can be. And with this wall, sometimes I recommend centering the artwork on the wall. But in this case, it doesn't feel right. Now, we'll take a look in another room in a little bit and see when that did make sense to use this side table and left justify it. And then it all made sense in the room. But in this case, it doesn't. And so I want to take a look at, instead of a 2-to-1 ratio, which is what foamy flute is, let's look at a 3-to-1 ratio. Do you see the difference there? And the other big difference in seeing striaces on this wall is it really does sink into this space so beautifully. The striation of the lines of striaces mimics her rug and her pillows and almost the wave pattern that's in her tile and these little poofs. So it really locks in a lot of the elements that are existing in her space already. And I do love striaces right here in this space. I do want to take a look at a couple other things. Now, this image, let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see it a little better. This image has exactly the color palette of her space. It's really quite exquisite, down to just the tiniest bit of green water here, which works out really well if you incorporate a plant into your space, and all of these beautiful taupe tones in the ground and the gray, blues, and whites. So, so beautiful in her space. I really, really love it. So that the only thing I didn't like about this is that it feels a little bit busier. So if she's wanting a space where she can relax, this might not be her pick. This one might give her that relaxation feeling that she's after. So again, both of these choices are beautiful choices in her space. I love the 3-to-1 ratio, and either one would work really, really well. The other thing is that we have oversized this piece as big as this sofa because I want to balance out the other sofa next to it. So oftentimes if we just have a small wall about the size of a love seat, which is roughly what this is, we would do a more narrow piece of art. But in this case, we need that width. We need that width to not only fill up enough of the wall that there's good balance, but also balance out what's on the floor. So this one is probably a 36-72 inch piece. And that makes a lot of sense. It feels really good in her space. Now, here's another example. If you want the same colors, but you want to up the vibrancy, maybe you want a little bit more excitement, but you don't want it to feel jarring and you still want it to work in your space. This one pulls in all the same colors that she has, but they're just more vibrant. And this one is a good example of if you want to kind of like simplify a beach feeling. It's exactly her color palette. It's almost mimicking this chair perfectly. And I really like the simplicity of it, but it is all whites and beiges and those warmer brown tones. So if she's wanting to pull in those blues, it's not going to work. But I do like the simplicity of this one. And then Cambria Cove. When I dropped this one on the wall, I was like, wow, it's kind of a showstopper. It really is a more saturated version, a more vibrant version of the colors in her space. And I really, really love it here. Let me zoom in so you can see it. It's almost a magical cove. I'm kind of obsessed with this picture on her wall, especially if she's wanting the room to feel a little bit richer. So my picks are between Cambria Cove. Oh, and there's one more. Okay, so this one is Santa Barbara. And this is exactly her color palette. I really, really love this one in her space. And do you see the difference when I drop all of these images on here? Do you see your body response? That's something I always want you to pay attention to. How does your body feel when you see the different images in the room? That is your instinct. That is going to tell you if it's the right piece for you. And that is the most important element. I can tell you what's going to look good in your space, but only you can tell me which one does something for you, which one speaks to you. And that is the point of artwork. It's not just to fill a wall. It's to make you feel amazing in your space. And so when we flip through these images, notice which one makes you feel amazing. Going back to this one, I'm really, really loving this one in her space. Oh, all of the little baby textures in it, just like the little patterns, the ripples of the art. It's actually quite magical in here. I feel like I'm torn. So I would say this is one of my top picks, as well as Cambria. Oh, I love Cambria. I'm going to say Santa Barbara is definitely a win for me. It adds a little bit of life to the space and a little bit of it definitely pulls you in as a focal point. So I think that's why I'm loving it so much. And Cambria, those would be my top picks. I think the reason this one doesn't work as well for me is it doesn't pull your attention the way that the other ones are. Now, you could probably fix that by, let's take a look at the finishing options. Copy, paste. Let me just add a frame to it. And do you see the difference there? If you pull that flooring color up onto the wall, it's going to pull your eye a little bit more. But even so, even with a frame, I don't think it's pulling my attention the way I want a focal point to be pulling my attention. And so my final choices would be Cambria Cove. And let's take a look at that with a frame on there. One more time. There we go. I prefer Cambria without the frame. I like it just sort of floating off into the wall. It's a very uplifting feeling. And then as far as Santa Barbara, you could get away with either way, but I think I like the frame on there. But either way looks amazing. I do recommend for this space something like a wrapped canvas with a textured float frame. That's a really modern look. And it's very similar to the way this is. It's very skinny on the face, and it's got a little bit of depth, which kind of bridges the gap between the edgeless style, the floating style, and a traditional frame that can kind of feel heavy and dated. It's definitely a very current look, and it works super well in a beach-themed room. So, Gina, this would be my pick for you. I hope that was helpful. And I hope that you found something that you loved in that. And I will be back in just a little bit with another sofa wall artwork selection. Thanks so much. See you next time.